Today we are going to talk about the alcohol activated makeup I have by Encore. I want to show you how you can work in layers, how you can splatter these colors on the skin, how you can achieve a very translucent effect and how you can work with them very opaque. So if you want to know more about the Encore alcohol activated makeup palettes or alcohol activated makeup in general, please keep watching because I will show you step by step in this video. So for today's video we are going to work with the Encore palettes. They are by European Body Art. This is the Skin Tones palette, and as you can see I have used the colors quite a lot over the last few years. So when you get yourself an alcohol activated makeup palette, basically you buy a resin mixed with pigments which won't move at all until you put 99% alcohol to it. So using that percentage of alcohol is very important. If you don't have any, you can definitely purchase it at our store, but if you don't live in the Netherlands or a country that we ship to, you can probably find it at a local drugstore or a pharmacist. Maybe you have a special effects makeup store near you which can deliver you that 99% alcohol. So why do I like working with the alcohol activated makeup palette so much? Basically because you can create very realistic looking effects, and it goes very well over all sorts of special effects products like latex, scar wax. You can work with it on gelatin, foam latex, although foam latex is kind of a sponge, so you would need a bit more experience maybe with the alcohol activated makeup before you want to put it on foam latex. But I like it most of all to work on silicone prosthetics. So that is what I'm going to do today. I'm going to apply a prosthetic very quickly to my skin and then show you all the techniques you can use the alcohol activated makeup for. I will show you splattering, I will show you layering, I will show you how to work with it very translucent and very opaque in the wound I'm going to apply. So the prosthetic I'm going to use is this one. I created this with the Platsil 25 gel by Mold Life and their deadener. I always mix equal parts A, B and the deadener to get a nice soft prosthetic that will move a bit with my skin if that moves. So this one is encapsulated in baldies, and that is a very important thing when working with alcohol activated makeups, because you have two different kinds of baldies. You have the regular baldies which is on an acetone base, and you have a super baldies which is on an alcohol base. I always use the regular baldies because if I would go over this with an alcohol activated makeup and the 99% alcohol on my brush, it won't affect the cap plastic at all. If I would use the super baldies, the alcohol and my makeup would affect the baldies, and that, well, could give a mess. So I recommend you to use regular baldies to encapsulate your silicone prosthetics if you want to work with alcohol activated makeup. This prosthetic has been pre-colored. It is very light. I don't really remember what I made it for, but well, the skin tone is really very light. So I'm quickly gonna get this on my skin using Prosthetic. And I will melt away the edge with the acetone. So you can't use nail polish remover. That doesn't work. You really need just acetone. If you would put nail polish remover with this, you would get a gooey mess. So now the prosthetic is on my skin, and as you can see it is way too light for my natural skin tone. So what you don't want to do is just put one layer of color over it and be done with it. Even if you put your entire face in that same color, you would still see that prosthetic standing out on your skin. What you want to do is make a natural looking skin tone, and that means it consists of a variety of colors which you can splatter on the skin, which you can stipple on the skin, you can layer it. Well, we will get into that now. So I'm going to start out with the Skin Tones palette, and I'm not going to use the skin tones to start with. I'm going to use the pink color, and maybe I'm even going to use one of the red colors from the special effects palette that is also by Encore, to just get rid of that very white light skin tone that is the prosthetic at this point. I have the 99% alcohol we have at our store. I'm going to use this to activate the makeup with for today, of course. And I have the Titanic FX brushes. I love to work with the Titanic FX brushes to create the skin texture I just talked about, to make it very realistic looking. I know that there are different methods to do this as well. I'm quickly going to show them to you. If you would be interested, you know these as well, but know that I always just use the Titanic FX brushes. I think they make life of a special effects makeup artist easy, and it gets you to your goal very quickly. So let's make a skin tone. So I dipped my brush into the alcohol, and the first color I'm going to work with is this one. So I will quickly activate the makeup that is in the palette and just put it on the lid to get it kind of more translucent. I don't want a thick layer of that pink coming on to that prosthetic. So now I'm gonna easily, with just the tip of the brush, dab some color onto that prosthetic, and as you can see, just a little bit makes a lot of difference on this prosthetic. If you would think you are working too opaque, you can just quickly, before the alcohol evaporates, dab on it with your finger. Now it is a pinkish prosthetic. So for the next color I will choose a different technique, and that is why I have a round brush, and I just dip this into a bit of alcohol, and I will continue to a darker red tone. So I will activate the makeup in the palette. This probably would be too opaque, so I have my mixing palette, and as you can see, it's quite opaque. So I will get a bit of alcohol and just dilute it until I have a nice wash of color. And what I'm gonna do with this is just very gently put it on the skin. So keep moving your brush, and anything you think is too opaque or too present, just remove it immediately with your finger and keep wiggling that brush. So with both these techniques, the stippling brush by Titanic FX and the round brush, you can just layer the colors until you have the desired effect. I'm going to continue with the 110 brush by Titanic FX, a special effects brush once again, and this very nice nicotine color. I'm not going to use a lot of this, but I do want a bit of that yellowish, dark yellowish tone over that prosthetic. So I'm going to activate it with the tip of the brush, and I'm gonna apply it to the lid again, just to remove a bit of that color again. So once you have the consistency you want, you can just stipple it over your makeup again. So when you are using silicone prosthetics and coloring them with alcohol activated makeup, it's very important to know what you are using them for, because looking at them just with your own eyes is different than when looking to a camera lens. So if you are creating the makeup for a party, you can just rely on what you see in your mirror. If you would need it for a photo shoot or something like a film, you would definitely want to see the makeup through a lens before it is used on set, because it would be a shame if you have made a perfect makeup to look at and when it is put on camera it looks terrible. So usually it needs to be a bit darker when on camera than in real life. But if you are uncertain and it is your first gig, you should definitely ask the person operating the camera, if it's a video camera or a photo camera, if you could see what it looks like on the camera. So for a live event I would be done with the coloring at this point, but I haven't shown you splattering of the colors yet, so that is definitely something I'm gonna add before continuing to the inside of the wound. So I'm gonna splatter on some colors as well. I have the big splatter brush by Titanic Effects. It is a double-ended splatter brush. This is just smaller and this is bigger, although I think that this one gives a bit larger splatter than this one. And I have the full-size splatter brush by Ben-Nye as well, and this one gives a bit bigger splatter still, probably because the hairs are so short and it just gives bigger splatter than this one. So I like to use this one for blood, and I like to use these for the skin tones. So to show you, I will just use this skin tone. I have dipped the splatter brush in the alcohol, and I will activate this by rubbing it onto the palette, and it is activated. So if you are splattering your makeup on someone else, you can use both hands to splatter. So hold the brush in one hand and splatter with the other one. If you are doing it on yourself, that is kind of difficult. So I usually use the brush with my hand and use my thumb to splatter the color on. So if you splatter from a long distance, you would get more surface splattered than when you splatter very close up, and that is what I'm doing at this point. I don't really want to hit the entire face with my splatter, although that would be fine. I just want to get the prosthetic colored. So these splatters are really small. And if you would start out splattering when you have applied a prosthetic, you might feel that the first minute nothing is really happening until at once you see an amazing effect on the skin. So just splatter that makeup on there until you are happy. So maybe I should show you what this does on my other cheek. So I have the brush and I have put some red on it. So as you can see, you get a nice layer of that red. This is very opaque. That is on purpose because otherwise you can't really see it. So that is the small side of the splatter brush by Titanic Effects. If I would do the same thing with the brush by Ben-Nye, you can see that the splatter is bigger than that was created with the Titanic Effects brush. So I think both effects are very cool on the skin, and you can create a skin tone with both as well, but the splatter is different. So I am going to use the splatter brush on the prosthetic as well. I have the Ben-Nye splatter brush, and if I would have a wound like this one, the outside of the wound would be irritated. So I have the splatter brush and I will put it very close to the skin and just splatter on a bit of that red to create the irritation that would be on the outside of the wound. And as you can see, it are very nice splatter you get from this brush. So the other splatter brush as well. So that are both of the splatter brushes, and a light red wash on the outside of the wound and on the inside as well, as you can see. So the downside to using a splatter brush is that your hands do get paint on them more than when you just use normal brushes. I think I'm happy with the outside of the wound. We are going to continue to working more opaque on the inside of the wound. I like to work with small detail brushes to create the inside of the wound with. I know this takes a bit longer if you have a large wound like this one, but that is just a personal preference I have developed over the years. So I have the 101 brush by Titanic Effects and a few regular round face painting brushes, and I will use these to create the inside of the wound. So I'm going to work with the blood palette by Encore, and as you can see, I have used many of these colors very much, with exception of the yellow, which I usually use from the injury palette, and the pink, which I usually have in the skin tones palette, so that is why these two colors are still full of color. So I'm gonna start with the lightest color of red and we'll just put it in the entire wound. And as I do want this color to be opaque on my prosthetic in a bit, I'm really activating the makeup until I have loads of pigment activated. So when I put this on the prosthetic, it will be opaque. Onto a darker red, which is this one, which I will also activate a bit more than I did with the skin tones that went over the prosthetics. So you don't want to color over the entire light red bit you just created, but you do want to get a bit more depth in there. Time for this red. This is a bit darker, a bit older red. And I'll also activate this a bit more than I did with the skin tones. So I like to make the deepest parts of the wound darker. So even though there will be blood in there in a bit, I do like to pay attention to the inside of the wound. I like to use this color as well. That is even darker, more brownish than the color I just used. And if you would want to, you can actually use the alcohol activated makeup to run out of the wound a bit. You would need quite a lot of alcohol, but you can just put it in there and let it run out of that wound. And just let it go its natural course. So if you don't really like that effect, you can just thin it down with a bit of alcohol. You can stop it somewhere, that is possible as well. Let me just remove this bit. To put some blood in the wound, I have the Sinewy Blood Gel by Vermilion Effects, and I will just put it in the base of the wound. This is a blood gel that absolutely looks amazing. That gives a nice shine to the wound. I have the Aged Blood by Mold Life as well. I will just put it on my mixing palette to apply it to the wound using a brush. So I am still using my detail brush, and I will apply it to the outside of the wound as well as to the inside. And that is basically because there would be blood on the outside of the wound if I would have a wound like this. Now finally I will remove most of that blood from the wound again, from the outside of the wound. The only thing I want to be left with is a kind of yellowish glow of the blood. That is orange, I meant. And that helps to create that realism. Yes, and that is it, working with the alcohol activated makeup by European Body Art, the Encore palettes. I have shown you how to layer the makeup, how to splatter the makeup, how to work with it very translucent, how to work with it very opaque, and I hope you learned something of this video and enjoyed watching it, of course. If you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our YouTube channel in the link below. Stay tuned on all the videos we upload. For now, I wish you a wonderful day and I hope to see you back next time. Bye!